Welcome back, everybody, to the Week in Horror, November 3rd through November 9th. Thank you all so much for joining us. I'm JL.
I'm Eugene.
I'm Alex.
Before we jump into this, just recently, the remake of The Grudge just got a new trailer. Or let's say the first trailer. Just released a little bit ago. And I watched it. I wanted to get your guys' take on it.
So I just watched it because I just found out about it, merely like right before doing it. I kind of have some mixed reactions to it because part of me is like, some of the effects look cool. Obviously, it's going to have a lot of jump scares. I really like John Cho. I think he's really charismatic on the screen on it. I am a little weary, just a little weary about the direction they're going to go with the story.
I can understand that. From what I understand, and what I've heard about the upcoming film is that it takes place in the concurrent timeline as the original one, as the 2004 one with Sarah Michelle Gellar. And also kind of serves as a reimagining of the American series. So it's difficult to say what they're going to do with it, but I have to admit, I kind of trust the minds behind it because you've got Sam Raimi, you've got Robert Tappert, okay, and Takashige Ichise, who is the mind behind the original. So you got some serious pedigree going behind this. Not to mention the director they chose was Nicholas Pesh, and his 2016 The Eyes of My Mother was a super, super creepy audition style, twisted, fucked up little film. So we got some heavy pedigree behind it.
And that's the thing is, I trust them. Like that is the one thing. Like I'm curious because it's the kind of a different genre that they're taking on, kind of going back to the J horror. But I do trust them. They have not steered me wrong yet. So definitely going to go see it.
Oh, absolutely. So like Eugene here, I just watched it and I thought it was super, super creepy. The way that they play with the sound, I don't know if you noticed that, Eugene, we just watched it, and Jared, but like the music and the way that they use like a violin creaking to like, there was a spot, I can't even remember what happened in it, but something happened where a violin made a noise and the sound alone was like super creepy. But it looks like they're playing off like the actual true sense of fear and trying to bring back that style of movie, because like it kind of fell off. You got into spoofy stuff, and horror films have just been kind of going in a different direction. But back to that like pure sense of fear that I got from that 2004 version, I think they're going to pull that into the. I think it's going to be really good.
Now, I have to admit, I kind of dug a lot of the imagery, and the energy feels pretty good. Feels pretty true to, especially that opening sequence with John Cho.
Yeah.
I thought was really, really solid. I'm not so much a fan that they're reusing. I saw they reusing the shower scene where the hand comes out of the back of the hair.
You didn't like that?
Well, it was done in the first one. It was done in the 2004 one, and I'm never a huge fan of reusing stuff, even if that was 2004. This is 15 years later. I'm not a huge fan of them reusing stuff, even at this point, just because it looked cool or got a shock so long ago, because it's just it's not original. They didn't come up with it first. That was someone else's idea entirely, and it's just kind of reusing it at this point. And I think they could have done something different. I just the complete reuse of that shot, and the only thing they changed was, instead of Sarah Michelle Gellar, obviously it's John Cho who's in the shower. So it was like, oh yeah, I was kind of like, oh well, because the minute he's taking a shower and he's washing his hair, you automatically know it's going to be the exact same thing.
Yeah, but that plays off of like, I just got over being able to take a shower without thinking about that scene in the movie. Now this is like refreshing the entire. Seriously, I saw the trailer and I was like, oh no, because I completely forgot about the demon that was gonna, reach through my skull.
Okay, I'll give you this. I don't know what's going to happen after that moment, because in the Sarah Michelle Gellar one, she feels the hand, she spins around, and it's just scary. It's like, oh my god, what was that? And then nothing happens the rest in that shower scene. Then we cut to the next moment. So there could be something that comes after that, because obviously
hold hands, embrace each other.
Obviously, in this one, in the trailer, that the hand came out more aggressively, so it could lead to a more aggressive or creepy confrontation. We don't know, so there definitely could be more after it. I saw it and I was kind of like, oh, bummer that they decided to go with that again. It kind of took it away, but with the cast, it's got Andrea Riseborough, Damian Bashir. I'm a big fan of him. John Cho, of course, Betty Gilpin, Jackie Weaver, but I'm loving the fact that they've got Lin Shaye in this, and Lin Shaye is a character actress, been in a ton of stuff, but she really kind of has recently made a name for herself in the Conjuring series.
Yeah, yeah.
Or well, the makers. No, I'm sorry. The same director, the same filmmakers, but it was in the Insidious films. So she was one of the psychics, or the psychic researchers in the Insidious films, and so she's been kind of running around in the Blumhouse Insidious Conjuring universe. With the how they're linking it all with the Crooked Man and the Nun and Insidious and all that stuff, and so she's really made a name for herself as like she's been a solid actress as long as I've seen her. I think she's fantastic, and now they bringing her in this brings that an extra level of pedigree, because she can go from like nice and sweet and we all love her to death to just stark raving freaking mad in on the turn of a dime. So I'm kind of looking forward to it. I would say I'm 70-30 on the upcoming remake.
The one thing that really bothers me about it, and just being the filmmaker I am, is the release date. January is typically a bad month for releases, because you'll have like the big Christmas films and you have like the big summer films, and then usually January is kind of like okay, well, we're gonna kind of get rid of stuff that's on the shelf, and there's always exceptions, and you'll have occasionally a good movie that come out in January, but January always wearies me. I always pay attention to release dates.
Definitely. Not to mention, there's also like 6 production companies behind this, because they got Screen Gems, who's like the biggest of them all. Scream Gems, they were behind the Resident Evil series and several other big names, but they've also got Stage 6, they've got Ghost House, they've got Good Universe, and Vertigo. We're all behind this, and when you have 6 production companies in, that's 6 groups of producers all sticking their fingers in the pot, and sometimes it goes well, sometimes it does not, but that also kind of concerns me, even with Sam Raimi behind it, because Sam Raimi is known for not really dealing with producers well, as evidenced by like Spider-Man 3 and some other works that he's done. Is just, and what happened with Ash vs. Evil Dead, it was difficulties with stars that led to the premature cancellation of that series. So, because the ratings were solid, but it was just production difficulties with Stars itself. And so, and I think they were wanting to pull money from Ash to put it towards American Gods, was the problem.
Oh,
and all the problems in American Gods caused problems across the board for everybody else. And unfortunately, Sam Raimi just doesn't brook with that shit. And I respect him for it. I really do. Because it's his baby. It's his IP. That's the thing that he started his career with back in the 70s. And so I got to give it to him. So, unfortunately, with so many fingers in the pot, I fear it may have a negative effect. But we're just going to have to wait and see.
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to see it regardless.
I'm definitely going to be there.
Yeah.
Alex will not be there. He will be cowering in his bed.
Hey, shut up. I'll be there.
Staring at the closet.
I want to feel that way because I'm twisted and dark, and it makes me feel at home.
We can all go see it, and then we can all like stay up and have an all-nighter because none of us want to go to sleep afterwards.
Well, that'll be cool. Grudge, the Grudge remake, directed by Nicholas Pesh and produced by Sam Raimi and Robert Tapper. That'll be releasing January 3rd, 2020. So just after the holidays. All right, so let's get this started. Eugene, what do you got for us today?
Okay, so we got a very, very iconic film coming up. It's directed by Brian De Palma, who has a long pedigree of successful movies. It was actually written by Lawrence Cohan and based off of a Stephen King book that came out in 1974. And doing some research, I found out that this movie is actually 46 on the American Film Institute's 100 Years of 100 Thrills. So it's definitely a
Oh,
big
yeah.
one. And that is the movie Carrie.
Ooh.
The original 1976, released November 3rd, right? And starring Sissy Spacek, William Catt, and a very young and kind of asshole-ish
Oh,
John
I remember he was such a dick in that film. I'm so glad. Oh, spoiler alert! I'm so glad he got hit by a car.
When the car blows up,
That's
I
right.
felt
That's
so
right.
good.
He tried to hit her with the car, and she blew the shit up. That was fucking amazing. I was like, oh, it couldn't have happened to a nicer
Yes.
person.
They all pretty much got what they deserved. So, just giving you a quick rundown of what happens, right? So you have this girl Carrie who's very kind of reserved. She's isolated. Doesn't fit in with school, and people pick on her. And it starts off with a kind of a disturbing scene where she has her first period in the shower, and basically like all the kids make fun of her for
Oh,
that.
was rough.
It was like brutal to watch. And then on top of that, because her mom is super super religious and was like, no, if you bleed, it's based off of sin, not just normal female body. So she has no idea what's happening to her at that moment. And then the kids are making fun of her on top of that. So it's just a shocking moment for her. And so she's dealing with a religious mother. Mother throws her in the closet, and basically what happens is everybody in gym gets in trouble, so they plot this huge revenge to get back at Carrie. So because they picked on her, they were given a week's worth of detention, and with the threat of not being able to go to prom. So they do this whole thing. They get this popular guy to ask her out, so they convince her to come. And as they putting together this whole thing, and then throughout the movie, she starts figuring out that she has this telekinetic powers. She's able to move like the ashtray. She breaks a mirror in her room. So when they actually execute this moment at prom and they throw all this pig's blood on her, then it's like, fuck everybody, I got powers, and she casts her revenge in one of the most epic scenes in film history with a prom kind of thing, and basically like massacres everybody except for the main John Travolta and the main girl that was picking on her, which I think is Pippi Laurie, and they try to hit her with a car. She blows up the car. She goes back. She deals with her mom. I mean, it's a great, great film to check out.
Yeah, that was an intense movie. I mean, like 1976. So we were all like, when did you see it? How old were you?
I actually caught it on TV, and I want to say it was maybe 12 or 13
Yeah,
at the
pretty
time.
young, right?
So like, like early to mid 90s.
Same for me.
Like
I think I caught it. I think I caught it in the early 90s. Maybe actually might have been the late. It maybe in the late 80s, like 88, 89.
I want to say that I was probably around like, the 12, 13. I can't remember if I had seen it like on VHS or if I caught it on TV, but I remember being really young and watching that movie and then like not really knowing what was going on, and then years later watching it again and realized that like it had it had a lot to do with like real life problems, but then they threw this twist in there, and it was that she had these powers, which was really cool. And that was like the first time that I'd really seen a film that kind of had that concept of the telekinetic powers, where I could like really kind of click with the movie. So I watched this movie, and it was one of a kind. It was scary in a way that like when we watched it, how old we were, it kind of affected us. At least me, being in high school and or going into high school, or I guess middle school. and just kind of being on
there was that seriously freaky concept. It was because Eugene, I believe her mother is like a hardcore.
She is.
We're talking like Westboro next level fundamentalist.
Oh yeah, she is like sin, you are sin, and is basically like beating her with the Bible and drags her.
She's like
to the closet.
old, like fire and brimstone, nothing but the Old Testament, hardcore. And I remember Carrie, Sissy Spacek, played that. So she was so amazing in that role. And
she's so good at playing the victim.
She's virtually this like completely and totally uneducated. She's not aware of anything. Her mother doesn't keep her, doesn't teach her anything. And she's not aware of anything that's happening. Of course, she's post-pubescent and barely able to cope with anything coming at her in life, which is why the period scene, the menstrual scene in the shower was so shocking because she has no idea what's happening to her. And and God, Piper Laurie was so fucking insane in that role as her mom.
Oh my God. It was screaming, like you said, drug her into a closet. I remember that scene too with all the knives when she finally snapped. It was
she crucifies her ass.
Yeah, dude. Sticks her to the wall.
Well, she kept saying like, I should have killed you. It's like, I should have killed you at birth and all this other kind of stuff, and I'm being punished because you.
God, could you imagine just being so upset because you just found out that like your whole life was like a lie and you've been stuffed into a corner at school, at home, screamed at your whole life, and all of a sudden you're like, guess what? I've got fucking telekinetic powers, so run.
Well, that was one thing that I thought was amazing in the film is Sissy Spacek's transformation from, she begins the movie as this homely girl, no makeup, no hair done, like nothing whatsoever, with shoddy clothes. Mother doesn't give her anything, and through the transformation as she's invited to the prom, and her life, it's all of a sudden seems like her life is coming together, and then this swan appearance at the prom in her prom dress with the crown, and I mean just I believe only Sissy Spacek could really pull something like that off. It was, I mean, just absolutely brilliant the way De Palma depicted it. He captured the essence of the book. It's in my opinion, one of the few book-to-movie adaptations that were done well. And the fact that this movie, Carrie, came out 2 years after the book was published, and considered King's probably one of his greatest novels ever written, was his very first one that was published. And the fact that they landed De Palma and Sissy Spacek, I mean, when they got a hold of the rights to this book, they knew they had something really, really special. And so I think it managed to do what very few book-to-movie adaptations do, because with books being so complex and points in the book basically covering such a wide spectrum that you can't cover that much information in a movie, you wind up with a movie that's like 5 hours long trying to touch on every single detail, so you end up having to cut stuff. Everybody knows that you got to lose stuff for the movie adaptation, and that generally takes the feel of the book away if the book is relatively complex. But in this particular one, there were simple beats, simple notes, very, very deep character development, and I think that this is one of those rare ones where De Palma was able to take these very, very simple notes, these extremely deep characters, these very simple notes, abused girl, monstrous mother, difficulties in high school. We all relate to that. I related to that looking back when I was in high school, and seeing kind of ourselves in that, and then, of course, the joy of, I would say, indulging in Carrie's revenge at the end. So,
and you bring up a really good point, because a lot of the older horror movies, like you look at Frankenstein and all like the Universal monsters and all this other kind of stuff, those are films made from books with the author long dead. I mean, you talk about Frankenstein was like 1820s.
It was Mary Shelley, like late 19th century.
Yeah, stuff like that. So a lot of times these authors are already dead, and this is one of the first films that the book comes out, they immediately want to make a movie, and then right off the bat can help kickstart the film, kickstart Stephen King's career, and this starts paving way for like, the Harry Potter movies and some of these others where you can start getting these book to movie adaptations quicker. And sometimes we actually have the author being a part of the filmmaking process. Kind of thing. So
well, I absolutely agree.
And so basically what I want to do is I want to know, and feel free to comment below, what are some of your favorite book to movie adaptations? I know there's a lot of them out there. Some of them work really well. There are some really, really bad ones. So feel free to comment on maybe ones that you felt like missed the mark or really bad, and maybe what could have made them better. But yeah, definitely let us know, what are some of your favorite book adaptations?
I can tell you one of my favorites is, and it's another Stephen King novella, was John Carpenter's Christine. I thought that adaptation was on fucking point, and that is one of my favorite all-time horror films. It's that, I would say a close tie was another John Carpenter film, is The Thing, which is based on the book Who Goes There, I think it was based on Who Goes There, the short story. And I thought, it in itself was kind of based on 10 Little Indians, but The Thing is one of my faves because that was a book kind of adaptation. But freaking Christine, holy shit, I love that car, I love that story, the music in it, and the translation story, and it was great because there was stuff in the story we didn't need, so they cut that, and it made the movie even better. Because like, what, we don't need this exposition, we don't need this extra detail. We just need car is possessed or alive, and it's evil as shit, and it's gonna run around. And that delivered some of the best stuff I've ever seen. I fucking love that movie.
And see, it makes me wonder about Stephen King. Maybe that's one of the reasons why he's become so popular and become so prolific in the writing scenes, because so much of his work can and has been successfully adapted to movies. With Carrie and Christine and Shawshank Redemption and these other films that they're able to translate well. Obviously, not all of his stuff. I'm talking about Dark Tower. Not all of his stuff translates well.
The Dome.
But,
sorry.
A lot. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. That.
Shots fired.
There was some bad ones. Sometimes they come back. Sometimes they shouldn't.
Do. But
sometimes they should just stay.
But I think has really helped them.
His movies have always been really, most of them, like The Mist. That was one that was like almost like word for word dialogue wise.
Oh yeah, it was brilliant. Fuck you, Frank Darabont. God damn.
Oh, it was great. I mean, like, it just from like beginning to end, because I loved the book. And I was like, yes, thank God, like a book that I can just freaking knock out in like 2 days. And then as soon as I finished the book, I like turned the TV on, and I'm not even kidding you. Like one of the first movie trailers popped up on the TV. I was like, no way. And so I went and saw it as soon as it came out. That was the only other movie that I've seen by myself. And like I watched it and I was so happy. I was smiling the whole time because it was like word for word. It was like scene for scene. It was perfect. It's exactly how I imagined it.
Yeah, so good. I'm just sorry I didn't have a bullet for myself at the end of that damn movie. But really, I did love The Mist. I thought it was fantastic up until the last 5 minutes. Unlike Stephen King, apparently King loved that ending and loved what Darabont did with it. I was not a fan of that. That just, God, all of that just awesomeness. It was like watching Ninth Gate all over again. It just, Anywho, Alex, what do we got next?
All right. Moving on from that sad situation.
That dark turn.
Let's go all the way back to November 5th, 1943 with Son of Dracula. Now, so I haven't seen this movie since I was a kid on Halloween one year, but I still remember it. I still remember Frank and Catherine, who Robert Page, and Louise Albritton.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Albrighton?
Mm-hmm.
Albritton?
Yeah.
Probably butchering that. But who was Dracula in that movie? It was can't remember his freaking name. Chaney something. Lon Chaney. That's what it was. Lon Chaney Jr.
Yeah, that's right. Yep.
Played as Count Alucard, which is Dracula backwards.
We can't fault him for that. I mean, it was 43.
Come on, man. Nobody.
If anybody wants to know, that's just Dracula.
It's just Dracula backwards, and nobody like put two and two together. Like when he goes to Budapest, and people write his name down a whole bunch, and they never like look at it and be like, "Wait a second." But no, being as old as it is, having Robert Page in there especially, he was pretty cool in that movie. I think he was my favorite character in that movie. It was a good movie. Have you seen it?
Oh, it's been a long time since I picked up on it. But if I remember correctly, that was the second in the I think it was the Universal Dracula trilogy, because it was Dracula with the classic with Bela Lugosi, and then you had Son of Dracula with Lon, and then I can't remember the last time I saw it. I think I only saw it once, but then you had Daughter of Dracula, which was the third one in that, and that was all a part of Universal's idea to have this giant shared universe of all of their monsters, of Dracula, of Phantom of the Opera, Frankenstein, Wolfman, the Invisible Man, the Mummy, and the Creatures in the Black Lagoon, and all of these, that they each had their own storylines, but they were actually all a part of a shared universe, which is why we then had like Wolfman meets the Mummy, and we had Dracula meets Frankenstein, and we had characters that were crossing, obviously different actors across the board, but one of the best, but you pretty much had your staples. You had Bela Lugosi, you had Lon Chaney Jr. Were pretty much your standards, and Boris Karloff, were pretty much your standards across the board, and they showed up in so many of those, either in small or in the title roles. But did you know that was the first time in Hollywood history that a production company or a production studio had attempted to create a shared universe, ever. Is like where all of their films are linked in some way into the same, which is why it's now considered the Universal Monsters, Universal Classic Monsters, because that was their MCU of the 20s to the 50s.
Okay, you say MCU, but the first thing that pops in my head when you say that is Scooby-Doo. Do you think? No, this is an honest to God question. Do you think Scooby-Doo would exist if this genre of the monster universe never became a thing?
Well,
that's a really good question.
Well, if memory serves, Scooby-Doo was produced by Hanna-Barbera. Okay, and I think Hanna-Barbera is that a subsidy of Universal, or is that a...
I want to say it is.
I have no idea, but I thought for sure you were going to say something like the CEO of Universal's daughter's boyfriend was actually the best friend of the writer of Scooby-Doo.
No,
6 degrees of separation.
I would say I gotta see, but if I think, because obviously we had all the Scooby-Doo cartoons, and we had, I would say, appearances kind of the Universal monsters.
They were at least replicated.
So Hanna-Barbera is owned by Warner Brothers.
That was a Warner Brothers.
Yeah.
And I think it's a borrowing, because at that point, when those were coming out, that was animated for them, and at this point, you already had Universal did its Universal Monsters. Then you had these, but because these characters are based upon IPs that are over a century old, Dracula and Frankenstein, the Bram Stoker's Dracula and the modern day Prometheus and the Invisible Man, the writings of H.G. Wells, and with stuff like this being so far out of IP, it's kind of free domain. So I think Universal jumped on it and made the movies, but then you had Hammer Horror. They picked up on it, in the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, and the 70s, and so on. And I think everybody just touched on them, is what it was. It's like because we can take these great characters, we can continue to reimagine them over and over and over again. So, but would we have without these classic monsters? Would we have Scooby-Doo? I don't think Scooby-Doo would be as good.
You think about it, though.
I don't think Scooby-Doo would be as
no, because they cover all of those monsters multiple different ways, multiple different times. They kind of use like every generation of those Universal monsters. And I guess the reason I bring that question up is also because, like, if you think about it, everybody has their Universal monster. Like, my Dracula would be, I guess, going from like Dracula 2000 forward. But I've also seen like Bram Stoker, and then like my daughter has something different. They've got like Twilight vampires, and then, it's just everybody's got their Universal monster and everybody has used them as like these, I guess, common or go-to.
Something that they kind of link
go-to
towards.
Monster. Like on Halloween, I guess, is what I'm talking about too. I don't know. It's just, there's so many different types. It would just, what if they never became a thing? Like what would our lives be like without those go-tos, like those?
Well, I think that goes back to the concepts of the urban legend, not really urban legends, but folktales and myths that, the stuff that came out of Eastern Europe, and tales that have been with, human civilization for hundreds of years. Going back, you got, vampires out of Romania and Bulgaria and Transylvania and Wallachia, tales of mad scientists and doctors playing God and stuff like that, inspiring the works of Mary Shelley, and then various other, werewolves. I mean, God, werewolf legend is almost ubiquitous across the globe. So is the vampire myth, and I think Universal capitalized because no one else was really doing this. People would adapt. I think one of the earliest silent films was an adaptation of The Hunchback of Notre Dame, and people who were doing adaptations of stories, but they weren't capitalizing on these folk tales, these folk legends, and legends from the old country. And so you have these kind of oral traditions that were passed down over the centuries. And I think Universal just capitalized on them because it's those kind of legends that you talk about, or that people talk about, or have in their families where they say, my cousins, whatever, knows something. And it was just kind of these whispered about tales. And then I think Universal just capitalized, said, you know what, we can make movies based off these characters. We have the movie, we've done other things that were scary, but let's capitalize on this untapped market. So if Universal hadn't done it, someone else probably would have, because those legends were always there for the taking and for the adaptation. I think we got lucky with Universal doing it because they did it so well, and they had such a crop of talented actors who loved what they were doing to bring this stuff across, to bring this to the screen. But if it wasn't them, it'd be somebody else. So someone would have jumped on that.
And the fact that they keep coming up constantly, so you already had those movies, then you get the Hammer horror movies, then you got them in Scooby-Doo, and you got other cartoons based off of them, so they've kind of gotten so ingrained in our culture and our mythos. They're a part of us.
Oh yeah, and I think they always will be. That's what makes them so undying, for lack of a better term. So but if I remember correctly, in Son of Dracula, that one was a unique one because obviously these supernatural horror films, give an opportunity for directors and for production companies to really push the envelope as far as effects go. But there was something about Son of Dracula that set it apart.
Yes, yes. So this is actually the first time, and it's crazy to think about it because it's so common to us whenever we think about Dracula today, but there had to be a first. This is the first time we actually see Dracula transform into a bat on camera,
Oh, that must have been wild
kind
at
of thing.
43.
And at the thing is, at the time, so we have a couple of movies that show actually a couple of mild transformations, like Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde, which is still one of the best transformations. If you ever get a chance to go and watch that, the way they did it. But you didn't really see that many transformations, so that was astonishing at the time. And the person who actually came with the transformation, his name is John P. Fulton, and he's responsible for the Invisible Man, and in that series, he ended up just a couple other things. He won an award for the Ten Commandments. So this is a guy who has been ingrained in horror, who's done special effects, who came up with the animation and stuff like that for it, and has lived on.
I mean, I'm now like remembering the first Invisible Man. And that scene when he's laughing like a maniac and he's unwrapping his head and shit, and everyone's like, "Oh my god, that was just to think." Clue me in, Eugene, because even as a filmmaker myself, I love practical effects like that. That what kind of camera trickery is that?
That is actually, so they actually used a couple of techniques. At the time, you would actually use this almost like a cartoonish animation style, and they would actually overlay that on top of the film. And the thing is that the fact that it was so seamless, because a lot of times when you have like these cuts on these transformations, it's almost like a jump cut kind of thing. And for those who don't know, a jump cut is where you have the exact same shot, but they put a cut so it looks like a character jumps, or the entire frame kind of jumps a little bit, kind of thing. You'll see it on YouTube all the time. So that's a jump cut. But the way they did it was that since they would overlay it on the top of it, you would avoid the jump cut, so it looks so much professional, so much lifelike on top.
Oh, that is so wild. I just remember just like, black and white film, and the actor is obviously there. Okay, and being able to pull out the deal that the whole it's in 3D, like he's unwrapping his own head, and he's not there, and just being astounded by that was very, very impressive. So, God, they did some fantastic work back then, and of course, everything we have today just sits on the shoulders of everything that Universal did.
It really does, because a lot of times what they would do is actually, because they knew it was going to be in black and white, they would play with camera settings and the colors. So the camera and film stock, you would actually adjust it to different colors. And so you can make something appear in and out of frame, not by, say, making it bright or darker again, but you can have your camera set and then increase the amount of blue light you would actually light your scene, so it will wash out another color. And that's how they can make things appear and disappear.
That's one of the cool things about black and white. Something I miss is because with black and white, black is black, and and shadows. You can be lost in them, and just the starkness of shadows. Instead of like now with color, you have gradients that you can kind of see in. But with black and white, shadows were shadows, and light was light, and it was very expressive of mood. And obviously, played very, very well into being able to pull off some trick photography. So really impressive. Really, really cool stuff.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I want to put it up to the audience, anybody who's listening. Of all the Universal monsters that are out there, we named off a bunch of them earlier. What is your favorite Universal monster? And what is your favorite Universal monster storyline? Like, did you dig Frankenstein, Bride of Frankenstein, Son of Frankenstein, or the Dracula series, or the Wolfman series, or the, my absolute favorite, Creature from the Black Lagoon? I love that work. I loved all the underwater work they did with that. I can't even imagine what it was like being in that suit at that time. Is intense. But what's your favorite Universal monster storyline? Let us know in the comments. So, this next one on our list, and one of my personal favorites, November 9th, 1984, which was a big night in horror, but November 9th, 1984, a little gem called A Nightmare on Elm Street released. And pretty much set the bar at this point. Now, directed by Wes Craven, we all know and love. And, I love this movie so much. But written and directed by Wes Craven, and starring a host of young stars at the time. We got Heather Langenkamp, John Saxon was in it, Amanda Weiss, Robert Englund, legendary Robert Englund, Freddy Krueger, and a very young Johnny Depp in his very first movie. So Johnny Depp,
12, right?
Yeah.
He was so young. He was so baby-faced in that. And arguably, I have to say, other than Robert Englund, who just went for broke with the way he depicted the Freddy Krueger, was arguably probably the best actor in that. It was impressive. He was nuanced. He was natural. He was just there, and then he got smoked most violently, which was really fun to watch. And one of my favorite scenes.
Jesus. You're going to say that's one of your favorite kills? That's one of my most memorable kills in horror movies, for sure.
So, but for anybody who's not seen it, which I doubt, but we'll give you a quick rundown of it is, the teenagers of Elm Street are suffering nightmares, and within them is this horribly burned, knife-handed killer who's stalking them in their dreams and manages to kill some of them. And as the teenagers attempt to figure out who this guy is and why he's stalking them in their dreams and why they can't seem to escape him, they discover that the whole thing is a revenge plot for what their parents did to this guy when he was still alive, before he became the monster chasing them through their dreamscapes. And it culminates in one of the best throwdowns between a final girl and a villain that I still think it even beats out Alice and Jason, or Alice and Jason's mother in the first Friday the 13th. Friggin' Nancy and Freddy going to town. That was just one of my favorite climaxes in any horror film. Such a fantastic movie whatsoever, and so beautiful and wonderful to watch. Mm-hmm. So many cool things to see in it.
Yeah, because when you actually start dealing with these dreamscapes, right, because Freddy Krueger's attacking the dreams, they had to come up with a lot of these practical effects to make it work, because you couldn't just have, Jason, just your standard, okay, we'll kill with a machete or chainsaw or something like that. You had to have some, freaky visuals and some things that, people haven't seen before, especially because the slasher's already at its high point. You already have a lot of slasher movies out. So Wes Craven had to do something that sets his movie apart from all these other slasher movies. And one of them is taking place in the dream. And so they actually went above and beyond on a lot of the kills, and which right off the bat, I'll start off with probably the most memorable kill is the Johnny Depp one, where he gets sucked into the bed and all of a sudden you have all this blood starts gushing and it holes up on the ceiling.
Such a sweet fucking scene.
It's such a brutal kill, right? There's not even that much blood in the human body, but there's just blood everywhere, anime style, blood everywhere.
It's just spray. They just filled up a leaf blower with blood and just switched on,
and just poured it on there. But if you haven't seen the scene, definitely go check it out. But the way they were able to do that is they actually built a replica of his room. Right, just scaled down a little bit, and then turned it upside down and poured blood into it so it would go on the ceiling. But if you pay attention closely, they only had one take because they knew it was going to go blood everywhere. They didn't quite tilt it exactly all the way, so the blood kind of runs to one side if you pay attention to it. But it works because it just, as you see his blood hit the ceiling, and then it slides over to the left, and what looks like an unnatural angle. They use the same upside down room on when they kill Tina.
Oh yeah.
What?
Which
I've never seen the movie. Just kidding.
Oh no.
Spoiler alert.
But I'll tell you right now, her death, when you want an opening death Right? That is one of the best opening deaths I've ever seen in a franchise.
Oh man, when her boyfriend is there, like, and they framed him so like he's right there in the corner, like he's looking up, and she's being dragged up the walls and across the ceiling and everything, and he's like, in the way they framed that so beautifully. God, Craven was a goddamn master.
He was, because it's like, you picture, a lot of times when you have a lot of these kills, it's like, oh, well, they're alone and their people are trying to rescue, but they don't get there in time. This is like he's there, and you can see how helpless he is on it. There's absolutely nothing that he can do. Nothing. And she just killed, like, right in front of him.
Yeah, those poor freaking kids in Ohio, man. Just because their parents were assholes. Moral of the story, don't be an asshole.
The dude was pretty bad. The dude was kind of a bad guy. I mean, yeah, they were assholes. Yeah, the parents were assholes, but he kind of fucking deserved it.
I mean, I understand. Like, I get where they're coming from, but, like, don't burn them alive. Take their head off or something. I feel like that'd be more of like a sustainable way to take, because then, they won't haunt you in your children's nightmares. Poor freaking kids, man. No, great.
They should. If they just shot him to begin with, it'd all be done.
That's like a lose-lose. You got to kill him, or he's going to keep raping kids. Like, what do you do?
And of course,
if you kill him, he's
going
to dream rape your kid.
And of course, the franchise itself is like, how many? Oh god, there's like
9 films.
9 films?
9 films, a TV series, books, comics. Like, Wes Craven started just something that would go in. We're talking about it now. Our kids are going to see it, and they're going to talk about it. He created this immortal
shit, you just reminded me. You just reminded me the Nightmare on Elm Street. Freddy's Nightmares?
Yeah.
Was that the TV series?
Yeah. It sounds right.
I believe so.
Oh my god! I remember that watching that when I was young. Oh, that's so creepy.
It just went on forever. Yeah, it was Freddy's Nightmares, and it ran 1988 to 1990. So, a few years after the first one came out. But yeah, they ran so long. It was insane to see that, and then I can't remember if it was there was something that came out later that I ended up seeing about it, and I was like so blown away that something that I'd been seeing my whole life had popped up, 15 years, 20 years later. It's still like I'm still gonna watch the entire series before Halloween.
Definitely.
It's just the fact that Freddy Krueger, they really, really gave him a lot of character instead of just being like a stone-faced killer,
funny,
or they're trying to go for.
He was almost relatable.
Funny,
in a way.
You laughed at him. It's scary. Yeah, he was. He was a villain that stood out way beyond his. Okay, the whole kill you in your dreams part. Yeah, that's creepy. And
fuck your kids and kill you in your dreams.
The character himself and Robert Englund. Oh. Yeah, just gloss over that part.
Yeah, Robert Englund though.
Well, I'm not going to get into why supernatural mass murder is relatable to Alex, but I will ask.
He's already said so much.
I will ask any listeners, what is your favorite entry in the series for Nightmare on Elm Street? Is it the first one, the original one, the kind of homoerotic part 2, Dream Warriors? Dream Warriors is my favorite. Maybe it's Freddy's Dead. Let us know in the comments. What's your favorite entry in the Freddy Krueger saga, Nightmare on Elm Street?
New Nightmare.
Oh, yeah. I got to go with the first one. I do. Got to go with the first one. But, yeah, definitely let us know what your favorite entry is. So we actually got a nice movie coming up also, right? And this movie actually came out on the exact same day as Nightmare on Elm Street. And it was out in theaters for only a week, and it was so shocking, right, and so gory and had so much bad imagery in it, they actually pulled it from the theater after only 1 week of showing, which is, something that's pretty much unheard of. But the fact that it was pulled actually kind of started developing a cult status, because a few people who saw it, wanted to, hey, you have to go find this video out. You have to go check it out. And it is Silent Night, Deadly Night, right?
Ooh.
Directed by Charles Sellers, right? Written by Michael Hickley, and it stars Lillian Chavin and Glamire McCormick in a insane, brutal Santa Claus.
Oh, I remember seeing the VHS for this at Blockbuster. Yes, I'm that fucking old. So,
hey, to be fair, I rented movies from Blockbuster too.
but I remember seeing this, and it was the Santa Claus arm with the axe sticking out of the chimney.
Yep.
And
you see that on the shelf, like, wait a second.
I was like, oh, hold up, that's no, that's not right. My, your worldview is just like, cognitive dissonance. No, Santa's not a murderer.
Oh my God, Christmas is supposed to be happy.
He sure as shit is a murderer in this one.
Yeah, he kills everybody.
So for those of you who haven't seen it, right? It is actually, it starts off with, you have our main character / who eventually becomes killer, Billy, and Billy witnesses the death of his parents by a robber dressed in a Santa suit. So the guy comes in and shoots his dad, and then like rapes the mom, and then slits her throat. And he's like hiding off in the woods, but witnesses this entire thing, and it like scars him permanently.
Yeah, I think it would.
With it. As it should. And so it starts following Billy, and as he gets older, he starts spending time in an orphanage, and as Christmas starts coming around, all these people kept making him like deal with Santa Claus, and it just scars him completely until it gets to the breaking point, right, where he is now like in his early 20s. He's working at a toy store, and they have this whole Christmas thing, and they make him dress up as Santa Claus. He's already scared to death of Santa Claus and hates Santa Claus, and they're like, why don't you dress up as Santa Claus and force people to sit in your lap?
This
force you to do that.
This will not end well.
And so as y'all can picture, he goes in the back room, right, and he sees his girl being attacked, and basically it just snaps. He's just, you're naughty. And goes and strangles the guy, and she's like, oh my God, I can't believe you killed him. He's like, well, you know what, I tried to save you, but you don't like how I saved you, so I'll just stab you with a box cutter in the chest.
Yeah, I mean, that seems like a reasonable go-to.
Yeah, and then, the manager walks in and is like, oh, well, I got to kill him too. So, kill him with a hammer. And so,
then he progressed to
he hits his breaking point. He's dressed in Santa Claus because he's not going to change at this point, right? And so he basically starts going on a killing rampage as Santa Claus, saying, you're naughty, you're naughty.
God. Yeah, that's crazy though. That's crazy that they pulled the film. It was like, what did you say, a week?
Yeah, it was
only in theaters for a week.
Yeah, but then there was 5 films. So like, was it 5? Yeah, there was 5 of them.
I think it was 5.
It's like 5 films.
I think the first 3 are connected. Like
the first 3 are like the same story, and then they go to a new
4 and 5 are like weird.
Yeah, then they change it.
I remember seeing. I never saw 5. I definitely saw 4.
There's something about holidays, and violence.
That was something that even in an interview in a documentary, Mother Superior, Lillian, I'm gonna mess up her last name, but Chauvin, like even admitted that it was a mistake to like focus on Santa Claus in this movie because it's not what they like intended it to be. In the beginning, it was supposed to focus more on Billy's side of the story, the whole Santa Claus thing. Like, and they even changed the name from like Sleigh Ride to Silent Night, Deadly Night, and the whole thing. They should have, like they said, they should have focused somewhere else with it. But like, there's so many parents and critics that were like, because it was the third time that Santa Claus has been evil in like a public film or TV show, but it was like the first big one, especially getting released on Nightmare on Elm Street night. So like there was so much controversy between mixing Santa Claus, this supposed to be happy jolly man, with an axe and the just absolute bloodthirstiness to kill whoever he finds in his path.
That's part of what was wild, is because when the film released that weekend, for that first weekend, it actually outgrossed Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah, by
what was it,
like $60,000 or something?
Yeah. Now, Elm Street, I believe, opened in fewer theaters, but it actually outgrossed it for that weekend and for the week in the short amount of time that it was out. So it was like something over $2.4 million that it grossed, that one. And
then after that, it dropped 45%.
Literally made its budget. Yeah, and so it was wild that it was so popular at the time, but then once it dropped, but part of that controversy was when it was predominantly the advertising campaign is what pretty much kicked it in the balls, and the posters of the Santa Claus with the Santa Claus arm with the axe, and there were some TV spots, some TV ads that ran. And in particular, one of the worst ones was that one of the TV spots aired in between, Three's Company and Little House on the Prairie.
Wow.
So children were watching this, and then the outcry from parents, basically, their kids suddenly being terrified of Santa Claus and didn't want to go near him, having seen this at the prime hour, and it wound up with the Parent Teachers Association, fought to have the film removed due to subject matter and the violent image of Santa Claus and the effect it was having on children. And it wound up with like protests. Crowds of families went to theaters and tried to shut down screenings of the movie. There was picketing, and it was nuts. And eventually, so much that they pulled it. That was the only thing. And I can't remember a time when, I think it was TriStar. I think it was TriStar Pictures was the original distributor, and then they pulled everything from it. They pulled all the ads, and then eventually ended up pulling the film. And I can't remember a time that was done in response. I mean, there was when Kevin Smith came out with Dogma, there was some pretty serious controversy that, because the Catholic Church and the Catholic League got all up in arms, and that even attracted the attention of Westboro. And there was a protest of that film, still didn't get it pulled. So maybe it was a different.
Fucking insane.
Well, maybe it was a different time. It was 1984, and
And that's what I was going to say, is that in the early 80s, we're still kind of like a Puritan. We don't want to see too much in movies. You had people that were trying to get Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. They're trying to give that an R rating, which came out, 82? Something like that. So it was a little bit more of a conservative time back then, because you release a Killer Santa movie today, no one's going to care. They're just they'll go see cool Santa Claus.
Oh, they did do a remake, I think.
I think it was like 2000.
Yeah, it was like kind of a loose remake, but this time
that.
It was like a guy in a Santa suit and a mask, and I think he had a fucking flamethrower.
Badass.
Yeah, it was like a Santa with a fucking flamethrower, I think.
Wait, what was the name of this? I want to go watch it.
It was I think it was Silent Night, Deadly Night. I think it was like a legit straight remake.
Yeah, it's just called
Silent Night. That was it. It was December 2012. And had Malcolm McDowell in it, but yeah, I think that it wasn't like Santa with like a fake beard, he was wearing like a Santa suit and a Santa mask, like a plastic Santa mask, kind of like V for Vendetta style, where it like covers his whole face, and had like the eyes blacked out, and he had a fucking flamethrower and was just torching people.
Well, damn. God.
So,
I'm gonna check that out.
So absolutely, you get a chance. Check out Silent Night, Deadly Night. You have the other installments that are there in the series, and the question that I want to ask is, leave your comments below. What is your favorite holiday horror film? Kind of thing. And I'm actually going to drop one real quick. It's a little short film that you can find it on YouTube and a bunch of other places. But there's a little gem out there called Tree Vengeance, which is it's a horror Christmas movie where the trees are alive and conscious, and people are cutting them and killing them, to decorate, do ornaments and stuff like what we do today, and then the trees revolt.
Oh my god, this
sounds
amazing.
They go on this killing spree. Oh, it is awesome. The kills are over the top. It is gory. One of the trees kills a cat and then throws their cat at the family. Right?
Get the fuck off me.
Climb on me, bitch.
So it's like the whole thing's like 15 minutes long, but it is hilarious. It is shot in an 80s style. So, but yeah, go ahead, drop a comment of what's your favorite holiday horror film.
Yes. All right, let's stop, because we're gonna start talking about Thanksgiving and
no, bring on Ginger Dead Man.
God, no, we'll cover that coming up here. All right, so moving forward 4 years here to actually same night, November 9th, 1988, Child's Play was released. And if you could make a doll creepier, they did it. They did it in the perfect era style that movie was shot. That's Catherine Hicks, Chris Sarandon, Alex Vincent, and then Brad Dourif was the voice of Chucky, and then the murderer, the Charles Lee Ray.
This movie scared the shit out of my wife. She was terrified. Yeah.
Tom Holland directed that. He did such a good job with everything. He wrote the screenplay too, along with Don Mancini. Was a writer on that one, and so there's for me the one scene that will always stand out, and I think it was from this movie, but I've watched all of them. When he's in the car, yeah, it is. He's in the car. Chucky's in the back seat of the car and stabs through the
you stab him to the back of the seat.
It's the reason that I check behind my seat every time I get into my car. I'm not kidding. That's not even a joke. And I'm not even ashamed of that. But just because of that one scene alone in this movie, I always check behind the seat in my truck.
It was interesting because they did a survey out of like the iconic horrors like Michael Myers, Freddy Krueger, and all this other kind of stuff. Who do you have most nightmares about? And Chucky was number one.
It makes sense.
That more people,
fucking doll.
More people have nightmares. He was.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you never God, and I would be so pissed if I got killed by a little fucking doll.
Oh wait, come on!
Mad.
Who didn't piss themselves with that epic scene when Catherine Hicks' character, when Andy's mom has the doll and she's got and she picks up the box and the batteries fucking fall out.
Yeah, and she's like,
okay, oh holy shit! And then she flips the doll around and pops the back. It pops the back, and then his head spins around. It's like, okay.
Today, bitch.
I shit myself when I said that was so well timed.
Oh, but that was I'm trying to think of a movie beforehand that dealt with evil dolls, but that was the first one where the doll was like straight up alive.
Like straight up running
even
around.
Like you got like Annabelle and like all that stuff, but Annabelle doesn't there's not really a point where she's just kind of like walking around the kitchen.
Oh, you had the movie Dolls, which was a creepy little weird black comedy.
Was super weird.
Then you had Dolly Dearest, which was which actually was kind of creepy, kind of scary. We wouldn't have had the obviously what came probably the clown in Poltergeist.
Oh my God! Don't. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
When do we cover that one?
I don't know, man. That doll, that clown doll, and that fucking tree were fucking scary. That was a scary fucking movie.
And one of the things that made Chucky work, because you had to figure out how to do the doll the right way, and they ended up going way more practical effects. And what they actually used is they used a combination of some animatronics along with a guy in a small suit.
Yes.
That's right. To get the walking correct. Yeah, to make it more lifelike.
Yeah, so there's a couple, whenever you see him like jumping off the bed or off the table or something like that, it's a guy in a suit. And then when you get the close-ups, like when he does the Exorcist head turning around thing, they switch over to the animatronic side, and they blend that so well. When you get a creepy little doll that runs across behind you.
Yeah, I think far more effective than any CGI. It was that I don't think because that final scene after he gets chucked in the fire and he comes out and he's stalking Andy down the hallway and he's doing that slow walk towards him and he's just fucking burnt to a crisp and smoking and he's just doing that slow stalk where Andy's trying to scoot away from him and just you couldn't have pulled that off CGI. You needed that. You needed that thing there in the hallway. Just that.
So can I throw something in there? Just a little thing that I read on this movie was in that scene when he's getting out of the fire. If you look really closely, you can see a hand pushing the doll. Like that's not supposed to be in the shot. I mean. Which I get, because like you said, there's so much that goes into that special effect that like they have to do something, and so they try to conceal a hand, and you can see it pushing him into the fire.
Well, there's been so many entries into that series, and you had the first three of the original trilogy. 2 is actually my favorite. I actually enjoyed that because I think after establishing the character, Brad Dourif got the opportunity to really kind of ramp up the range of what he could do with the doll. So, yeah, we didn't need any backstory. We didn't need any setup like this. He was like, oh, great, fantastic. The killer's in the doll. We know it. And now Brad Dourif can just go to town just being himself. Just, probably one of the most iconic voices out there. And so he's been the voice of Chucky for, I think, what is it, 5, 6, it was like 8, I think, 8 films? It's like 7 or 8 films with, Bride of Chucky and then Seed of Chucky and then
Seed of Chucky,
Curse of Chucky, Cult of Chucky.
Yeah.
And so 7 films. 7 films, Brad Dourif has been the voice of Charles E. Ray, of Chucky. And I mean, I couldn't think of another voice for him. That's why it was so controversial with such a legacy behind it. Plus, with well, we know that the series kind of took a turn with Bride of Chucky and Seed of Chucky. I honestly think because it went more camp, and then it definitely got silly with Seed of Chucky like this. But when Curse of Chucky came out. And Cult of Chucky, it's still canonical. It's still following the same canon, the same universe. But those ones those ones I think Mancini course corrected perfectly into those, and I think Curse of Chucky and Cult of Chucky were fantastic. And they got back to what made Chucky scary again. And so they'll never recapture that very first film. The very first one, but the new ones coming out, that's why it was so controversial when the remake was announced, and Mancini had nothing to do with it and didn't want anything to do with it, because because with Curse and Cult, the franchise has picked up steam again, and he's got plans for it. Plans to continue the story on now with Brad Dourif still doing the voice, and now with his daughter, with Brad Dourif's daughter, Fiona, now working in the series as well. So he's got plans, and he didn't want anything to do with the remake, and felt that it would detract or take some of the steam out of what he was trying to do. But they went ahead and went on with the remake anyway, because he doesn't specifically own the rights to the doll. He owns the rights to Charles Lee Ray, but not to the doll itself. Exactly, which is why the remake focused on haywire AI, and more CG, and of course, I can't argue with the casting of Mark Hamill as the voice, but I felt he was just trying to imitate Brad Dourif.
Yeah, and with Mark Hamill, for those who don't know, he has the iconic voice of the Joker for so many, like the animated Batman series and the Arkham Asylum video games, and he is the voice of Joker, and he does quite a few other villains too. He just has an iconic voice that can do that. And when the best way to have Mark Hamill is you unleash him. He came up with a tone that he wanted for the Joker, the half laugh, half creepy tone, and that's why it works so well. Instead of, okay, well, hey, Mark Hamill, you have a villain voice, but we want you to exactly do Brad's. If you want to do Brad's voice, then you just hire a voice actor who can perfectly mimic Brad's voice versus Mark Hamill doing it. Because I feel like Hamill's voice kind of goes to waste in this.
Yeah, it was a missed opportunity. Because I think they played it too safe instead of letting Mark really try to put his own spin on it, to bring his own energy to it. They just went with Brad. But then again, maybe because Mark's getting old, we know he's retired from the voice of the Joker, because the voice of the Joker has done a lot of damage to his voice, keeping up that laugh and everything. But maybe it was the safe option for Mark, because trying to do something else, he probably didn't want it to come out like the Joker. His most iconic voice. If he tries to go down that road, it may sound too much like that. So he may have played it safe, try just doing kind of a spin on the Brad Dourif style, doing that. And of course, we'll never know, because not like we're ever going to have Mark Hamill on this show. But
why not? He's done with Star Wars. He did this film. He's not doing shit. He can come on the show. He's got the time.
Because I'd be more apt to have Brad Dourif on this motherfucker.
Let's get them both in and just see what the fuck's up with this.
Just ask them.
yo, let's hash this out right here, right now. And they're gonna be like, "What the fuck? I hate this guy." And then this would be great. So let's have our people contact his people.
Let's find out what the listeners think.
Yes. So let's see. Comment below. Who do you think is the better voice of Chucky? If you think it's Brad Dourif or Mark Hamill, so let us know in the comments.
It's Brad Dourif.
Luke Skywalker.
There is a correct answer, by the way. For those who don't know, this is a pass or fail question.
So we have one special birthday this week, and I've been looking forward to this one because he is one of my favorite icons in all of horror. And born on November 3rd, 1946, I want to give a happy birthday to the one and only Tom Savini.
Well, what?
Happy birthday!
So this cat is so legendary. A little bit about his background. Tom Savini is both a makeup and effects artist, and he's also an actor and a director. And Savini got his start in the industry by working with George Romero. So that's literally where he started, working in movies, was with the guy who created The Dead. And his work was, he pretty much honed his work through his childhood, just kind of, practicing makeup effects on himself and honing his craft and figuring out his style, then eventually practicing on his friends. And one thing, but it was when he went to Vietnam, because he did a tour in Vietnam, and a lot of people have commented on Savini, the realism of Savini's work, and how well he captured, gore and dismemberment and all kinds of just horrible stuff, all the stuff that we came to know in the Dead series. And because he's the first Dead movie, he worked on Dawn of the Dead.
Yep.
And so it was his experiences in Vietnam and the things that he saw, because he was a combat photographer, and the things that he witnessed went to inspire the work, he pretty much threw all of that into his work, and it was kind of what he has often said is kind of what kept him sane, is because he just kept looking at what he was seeing like they were special effects. He's like, it's just special effects, it's just special effects. And then he took all that and then segued it into his career and used his efforts, used the things that he saw in Vietnam and his early stuff, like his early, I think his earliest influence was Lon Chaney in Man of a Thousand Faces, is what kind of inspired him. Mm-hmm. And he took that, and he has had a legendary career, both as an effects artist and also as an actor. He's been in a ton of stuff. He was in From Dusk Till Dawn. He's been in Children of the Living Dead. He was in the Ted Bundy movie. He worked on the Dawn of the Dead remake with Zack Snyder. So he's been pretty much connected to the Dead series, to Romero's Dead series for as long, from pretty much the beginning. Worked on Grindhouse, Machete, all kinds of stuff. But his career as an effects artist, we've all seen it before. He worked on Friday the 13th. He worked on the original. He worked on the Romero's Dawn of the Dead. He worked on Eyes of a Stranger. He worked on the first Maniac film. He worked on both Creepshow and Creepshow 2. Friday the 13th, The Final Chapter was one of his big ones. The dude is just a legend.
Yeah, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's funny because I was sitting there, I was looking up credits, and you mentioned that he was in Dusk Till Dawn. He's credited as just Sex Machine.
He is so brilliant.
I couldn't let that go. I could.
The dude is so cool. I saw him. He narrated a Friday the 13th documentary where they pretty much just talked about all of the movies because he was so heavily he's been so heavily involved in that franchise, and his narrating was he's so camp and so comic, and just loves what he does. Just gets into it so much. Just fake blood and polystyrene body parts and all kinds of stuff. The dude is a blast to watch, and I think he would be so much fun to work with.
He loves what he does, and that's just great.
Yeah, that's why he has a long career of doing it.
So if you ever want to check out some of his stuff, for any of our listeners, if you want to check out some of the stuff that he's done, you can check out any of the stuff we've mentioned before, but he also, we talked about it in a previous episode, Tales from the Dark Side, the TV series. He actually directed 3 episodes of that, and he directed the remake, the 1990 remake, which we mentioned, of Night of the Living Dead with Tony Todd. He actually directed that as well. And a big thing, the Theater Bazaar. He directed a segment in that called Wet Dreams, which was really freaky. I don't want to spoil that. I want people to see that. But you can see a lot of his work throughout horror, a lot of his inspiration. He's one of the first big ones. He goes up there with Rick Baker and the likes of that. So happy birthday to Tom Savini. Thank you so much for all the
happy
blood
birthday,
gore.
Tom. So happy birthday, Tom.
Birthday.
Well, that wraps up another episode of Week in Horror. Thank you all so much for listening. Maybe you learned something, maybe you laughed. We do hope you did. Week in Horror is a real passion project for us here, and we really hope you enjoyed as much as we enjoy making it. If you did, please subscribe to us on Spotify, SoundCloud, Google Podcasts, or your favorite podcast hosting site. And make sure to stab that notification button as we drop new episodes every single Sunday. And we're always improving here at Week in Horror, so any questions, comments, or feedback, we would love to hear from you. And of course, if you follow us at facebook.com/weekinhorror, you can get your daily splatter, which is a bit of horror history every single day. Because what's a day without a little horror? All right, thank you again for all your support. We love you guys. I'm JL.
I'm Eugene.
Alex.
And we will see you all next week.
Bye.